benefit of Albertans, British Columbians, and for that matter, for all Canadians. Today, the Federal Court of Appeal issued its decision related to the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion. We're reviewing that decision carefully. Aujourd'hui, la Cour d'appel fédérale a rendu sa
The
décision.
Federal Appeals Court has rendered its decision relative to the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion. We are carefully reviewing the Crown decision.
Our government inherited a flawed environmental review process, and we made efforts to improve it. We're going to review today's decision to ensure that we're meeting high standards when it comes to both protecting the environment and meeting our obligations to consult with Indigenous peoples. The courts asked us to respond promptly and in a meaningful way to today's decision and has given us some good directions on next steps. As a government, we take our responsibilities seriously. While we want to make sure that the project proceeds, we also want to make sure it moves ahead in the right way. Today, Kinder Morgan shareholders also voted to endorse our government's purchase of the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion and its related assets. Our next step is to close on the acquisition of the project, and we expect that that will happen as early as tomorrow. Aujourd'hui, les actionnaires de la société Kinder Morgan,
the Kinder Morgan shareholders also voted in favor of the Trans Mountain Pipeline project and the purchase of the assets on the part of the government. Our next step consists of concluding the purchase of the project, which should happen by tomorrow.
As we move ahead with the project and with the purchase, our government remains committed to ensuring that the project proceeds in a manner that protects the public interest. That means ensuring the highest level of governance, including environmental protection. It means upholding our commitments with Indigenous peoples. And it means responsibly protecting Canada and Canadians' investment. As we've said since the very beginning, building the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion is in the national interest. That's why our government made the decision earlier this year to purchase the existing Trans Mountain Pipeline and the infrastructure related to the Trans Mountain expansion project. We chose to purchase the project because it's a sound investment and because as a government, we can manage risks that in these particular circumstances would have been difficult for any private sector company to bear. And once we get past those risks, as we've said before, we'll work towards transferring the project and the related assets to a new owner or new owners in a way that ensures that the project's construction and operation will proceed in a manner that protects the public interest. Taken together, today's decisions from the Federal Court of Appeal and from Kinder Morgan shareholders are important next steps in getting this project built in the right way for the benefit of all Canadians. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
One question, one follow-up, please.
Good afternoon, Minister. Veronica Tang from Global News. Could you clarify, when you say reviewing this decision, will Ottawa be appealing the decision from the Federal Court of Appeal, or is the plan to adhere to the court's decision and revisit some of those issues regarding Indigenous and environmental impact?
As I said, we believe this project is in the national interest. We believe it's critically important for our economy, critically important to allow us to diversify the markets, to get to international markets. We do know that it has to be done in the right way, which means we will analyze this decision. It's a 275-page decision, and we will respond promptly. That's what the court has asked us to do, and we will do that. But we've not yet gotten to conclusions on the exact response.
As a follow-up, what will this mean for business investment and the Canadian economy as a whole now that we have this decision and also another large issue with the NAFTA negotiations hanging in the balance?
It's important to step back and put what we're talking about today in context. The Canadian economy is doing well. We had a very positive 2017 with leading the G7 in growth. We've had good results this morning with the growth that we're seeing in the Canadian economy. And of course, we have among the lowest rates of unemployment we've seen in 40 years. So the context is positive. What we're saying to Canadians is this Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion is something that allows us to assure we diversify our markets, It allows us to ensure we have good, well-paying jobs for Canadians. Similarly, what we're trying to do with NAFTA, we're working hard on that discussion, is to make sure that we continue to have a good arrangement between Canada, the United States, and Mexico, one that will assure our economy remains strong. So today, we're in a good situation. We're working towards making sure there are good, well-paying jobs for tomorrow.
Thank you.
Hi, Emma Paling from HuffPost Canada. Is it possible for a private company to complete a major resource project in Canada?
This is a very specific project we're talking about. We're talking about a project that clearly had risks between provinces that were difficult for a private sector actor to deal with. We stepped in because we knew the project was in the national interest and there was a federal role in dealing with that. What I know, though, is that we have many other projects that have good decisions possible for businesses to make investments. This one will be a strong commercial project once we de-risk it. That's what we're attempting to do so that it can be in the market over the longer term.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, my name's Salman Faruqi. I'm from the Globe and Mail. You spoke that you were inheriting a flawed sort of process when you bought this pipeline. If you knew that going in, why was this purchase so important?
I'd just like to step back and say we inherited from the Harper government a process to review with the NEB that was flawed. We set out to improve that process. The court decision this morning actually said that the process we put in place is a distinct improvement. What we're going to do now is make sure that we analyze that decision so that we can assure meaningful engagement with Indigenous Canadians, so that we can ensure that the protections, the environmental projections that we've put in place meet up to the high standards that Canadians expect. I think what you're going to see from our government is a continuing focus on how we can assure that we get our resources to markets so that we can get the price that we should be getting for our resources, not rely just on the US market, but have a more diversified approach. That we know requires a robust consideration of issues from Canadians.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, Minister. I'm Marie Morrissey, CBC. Why would your government proceed with the pipeline deal before this decision came out?
We moved forward on the decision to purchase the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion because we saw that the political risks between British Columbia and Alberta were not ones that a private sector firm could deal with. We understood that dealing with risks that the federal government could deal with, including that risk, but also considering that there might be other potential risks, was an important place for us to be to make sure that this happens. We believe it's not only in the interests of Albertans and British Columbians because of the good, well-paying jobs for middle-class Canadians, but also for all Canadians, as I said, to get assurance that we can get our markets to our resources to international markets.
And I mean, this for many people might now seem like a bad investment if it didn't seem like it before. Is there a break fee that the federal government would have to pay in order to walk away? And would you be willing to consider that?
We're looking forward to moving forward with the conclusion of this purchase. It'll happen as early as tomorrow. So it was an important milestone today with the shareholder vote. We know that this is an economically good decision for Canadians, not only in terms of the pipeline itself, but in the benefits it'll bring to our broader economy. So we're looking forward to making sure that we move ahead in a way that diminishes any risks. That will include listening to Indigenous Canadians, engaging with them, and presenting what we've done around environmental protections. We've already put in place the important Oceans Protection Plan, which was not considered in this court decision. And that is one that assures that we protect our coastline that deals with any environmental risks.
So you wouldn't consider a break fee?
As I said, we're looking forward to moving forward with this. We know it's in the best interest of the country.
Mathieu Simard, Radio-Canada. Je veux vous entendre sur la responsabilité.
I'd like to hear what you have to say about your government's responsibility to Canadians with today's decision. Was it too risky, maybe, to buy the pipeline? Also, with the uncertainty to come, was that the right decision for Canadians? We know that the decision to purchase the pipeline was important for our economy, because we need to diversify our economy and our markets for our resources, which is why it was important. The political risk that existed between Alberta and British Columbia was major. We now have made the decision to continue with the project and analyze the court's decision to ensure that we are considering the opinions of the Aboriginals and protection for the environment, but we want to assure Canadians that the project is in the national interest. Well, there you said that the Aboriginals were consulted properly. Today we found out it wasn't. So will you agree that you made a mistake, and what will you do? We inherited a process from the Harper government that wasn't correct. We didn't have the opportunity to consult in any substantial way with the First Nations. We've changed the approach, and now we will analyze the decision to see how we must engage with the First Nations. What is clear, what's important is for the protection of the environment. We have to analyze what we got today, but the project will be in the national interest. And what about consultation? We need time to analyze the decision. It's a 275-page document. We have to read and evaluate our next steps.
Paul Manga from the Wall Street Journal. What will the delay do to the costing for the project?
First, we're absolutely committed to moving forward with this project. What the decision today asked us to do was to respond promptly, gave us some direction on how we could do that in a way that was going to be efficient from a time standpoint. So we will be considering our next steps in light of that. What we really saw today was a confirmation that our government's decision to buy this pipeline, because of political risks that were hard for a private sector actor, was absolutely the right conclusion. We did it because we saw the risks between British Columbia and Alberta, but we saw that there could be other potential risks. We know that this pipeline, which is in the national interest, needs to get built. We know that we're the ones to de-risk it. We know that allows us to get into the private sector. I can't conclude on any outcomes from this decision today until we do some further analysis.
And do you think this it all justifies Kinder Morgan's fears that when they pulled out, decided to sell to you?
Kinder Morgan, I think, came to us with a realization that the political risks that they were facing were hard for them to deal with. I can't tell you that I know why they fully got to that conclusion, but it's, of course, their right to do so. We saw that it was a decision from our standpoint that was a financially good decision for Canadians, both in terms of the pipeline itself, and one that presented us with the opportunity to assure that we could diversify our markets internationally, which is particularly important given that such an overwhelming majority of our oil resources go to the United States. Thank you.